All right, 6:32 around. Many, if not most of you, or even all of you, have already formed your opinion on the 30-meter telescope in Mauna Kea. But right now, we're going to invite you to have an open mind and to listen to advocates on both sides of the issue for an intelligent discussion so that you can be more informed on this incredibly important topic. Dr. Kamana Beamer and Makana Silva are here with us this morning. Dr. Beamer is an associate professor at the Center for Hawaiian Studies at the University of Hawaii Law School. Makana Silva is a PhD student in astrophysics at Ohio State University. Both have deep ties to Hawaii, powerful beliefs on Mauna Kea and TMT. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for coming in.
Aloha.
Okay, Dr. Beamer, we'll start with you, and this is based on a coin flip, but just on a personal level, why do you not want to see TMT built?
Sure. Well, I really want to thank you for this opportunity, a chance to really more talk story. I'm not here to debate, but just share some of the things that I've learned and come to know over time. So my family has, ancestry relationships with Mauna Kea. We've written songs, we've written chants. I live in Waimea. Waimea is my home. I look at Mauna Kea every day. But really, where I came to this point was, I think back studying land tenure, being a young Hawaiian, want to figure out what happened to our lands. How come Hawaiians don't own lands and control decision-making over our land base? Of course, I learned about the overthrow. I learned about confiscation of ceded lands. And, Mauna Kea is a portion of those lands that was stripped from the hands of Hawaiian people. And as I learned more about that, I learned we need to steward those lands in the best possible way for future generations. And, that led me to learn 18 stories, drilling 20 meters into an undeveloped peak after there's already 13 telescopes. So it was just too much for me. And I said, this doesn't work. It's too much.
Yeah. Makana?
Yeah, I guess for me, and first off, I just want to say again to everyone, mahalo. Great to be up here speaking with everybody. I will say for me, it's kind of the idea that what happened in Mauna Kea from a historical, ancient perspective, and what people are currently doing, not just on the Mauna, but off the Mauna, just how Hawaiians use stars, how they're using stars, and how we can use stars to not just further, like the peak of the Mauna is a very international thing. It helps the globe, but how Hawaiians can be leaders in that development, and how that can help bring us closer to what I believe what our ancestors did many generations ago to even come here.
Yeah. And both of you have already touched on this, and Makana, I'm going to start with you this time, but we talked about the sacredness of the Mauna.
Yeah.
And opponents of the project will say, well, this is going to desecrate things, it's going to make things much worse. People that support the project might say that this might enhance the experience in some of the ways that you just spoke of.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, for me, I think this is just a personal belief, but I believe what greater way to pay respect to our kupuna, to the people before us who put their soul and their lives into studying the heavens above us, and not just for navigation, for like the way of life. The stars helped us farm. The stars told us the seasons of how our social, how we interact with one another. And I think what better way to pay homage, pay honor to that by continuing the studies, by looking at the same things that they were looking at hundreds of years ago, hell, even thousands of years ago, maybe.
Yeah. Dr. Beamer?
Yeah, certainly Mauna Kea is a wawakua, and there are, many deeply committed people coming from all over the world, really, that are reconnecting with Mauna Kea and understanding how significant it is. There's kupuna that are literally sacrificing their lives, everything that they have for pono, for that mountain. And, I agree with the dissenting opinion of Justice Wilson, where he said, one of the most sacred landscapes in Hawaii is going to be allowed to be continued to be degraded simply because it was already degraded before. And in his dissenting opinion, he said, the permit shouldn't be granted. And that's the way I look at it. Even some of the best legal minds in Hawaii have assessed that the continued 13 telescopes, the scale and density of them is too much for a conservation district. And that's going to be coming up in a land commission use hearing, where they're going to have to grapple with this issue. Mauna Kea has been actually more managed, in an industrial fashion than it has in a conservation fashion. And the Land Use Commission is going to have to unravel this, and we might see, a shift in the permit for TMT.
Yeah. The more we hear both sides talk, the more we start to realize how dug in both sides are. And we keep hearing government officials talk about compromise and that's what we need. Opposition says that there's no compromise unless the project is completely abolished, at least on Mauna Kea. So we'll start with you, Dr. Beamer. Is compromise at all possible? What would it take to see something like that?
Sure. I think we have to recognize, again, we're not operating in a vacuum. TMT didn't just come out of nowhere. And so there has been compromise. There are 13 facilities up on Mauna Kea. And when I got re-engaged in this issue and I visited the summit and I just saw the density and degradation, it was just too much. And so Hawaiians have compromised. Aloha Aina have compromised many times. And now to take one of the few remaining undeveloped peaks and build the largest structure, that is on all of Hawaii Island, let alone on the peak of Mauna Kea, to strip that from my children, the chance to experience a pristine Mauna Kea, when there is astronomy happening already, it's too much.
Yeah. So just to clarify, there's nothing that the government could promise.
I think the future is really about stepping back and looking at the overall stewardship of Mauna Kea and balancing astronomy with natural resource management, with Hawaiian science and culture. And this is an opportunity. The reality is the astronomy can continue in other places in the world. We have a beautiful scientific community on Hawaii Island and at UH Manoa, and that will continue as well. But we got to step back here and think about the lives and commitments of people and the future of the Mauna.
Yeah, Makana?
I guess for me, it's so to answer your question about the compromise.
Yes.
From first thing, I feel as though there are different individuals on the opposing side who fall in different parts of the spectrum. There are people who, when I went up to the access road and you spoke to Pua, spoke to some of the other kia'i, they kind of said like the real only compromise is the removal of everything up there. And then I've spoken to some people in my community, some people kind of in between, who've kind of said like, and kind of going back to what Dr. Beamer was saying, there's a lot of facilities up there. Why do we need extra telescopes? And there are some that are supposed to come down. Why don't we get rid of them? And then they'll be like, maybe I'll be more up to the idea. So from what I heard, there's kind of a spectrum of individuals. There are those who it's one way or the highway. There's others who are kind of like, if we maybe get rid of some things, maybe. And then there are some people who maybe don't see the entire or the full story of what is TMT and what TMT actually plans to do and how TMT as a project itself is kind of setting an example and kind of raising the bar for how actually the stewardship is going to be managed up on the Mauna. So I think, I think when you put all these people into one category, I think it's kind of hard to just say yay or nay to a compromise. But I think, I think there are ways to make some people happy, maybe not make everyone happy though.
Okay, so a follow-up question here. What should the government be willing to give up? What should they do maybe for the Native Hawaiian community in order to appease them and to have this project built?
That's me?
Yeah.
What the government can do. So I'm unfamiliar with the things that government is in charge of, what they have power over. If I had to say anything, I guess it would just be to, as government in charge of the state of Hawaii for the people of Hawaii, it would be to, do what's in what they're bound to do by law. I guess is the only thing I could speak of from my experience. Right. I can't really say, Yeah. I'm in no power to say or have knowledge to say what the government can do.
Yeah, and maybe to clarify, and I'll throw this out for both of you. Is there anything you would like to see as far as more programs for Native Hawaiians, more money spent in that direction?
Okay. I'll definitely say at least for me personally, I grew up on the west side. I went Waianae High School my freshman year, and the difference between going from Waianae to Kamehameha, I'll be honest, is just the resources. I think, there are really bright Kanakas out there and all over, and I just think it's the real difference that makes a difference between where I'm at and where other people can be is just resources. And I think the government can be a huge active player in that role by helping make more resources available, and just things like that, just allocating money to public schools and really helping teachers and whatnot, making education a priority to the keiki.
Yeah, I completely agree. We need more support for Native Hawaiian education across the board. We need more scholarships, and there's Hawaiians shouldn't have to compromise our values and develop one of our most pristine areas to get a good education. That is absolutely unacceptable. And everyone in Hawaii should think about that and contribute. There's lots of resources that could come for Hawaiian education. I've spent most of my life working in public charter university schools, volunteering my time for educational initiatives. So I deeply believe in that. But you can see again, pitching this idea that, Hawaiians, do you want an education? Then just develop one of the few remaining peaks of your most sacred mauna is an unacceptable position. And we need to speak truthfully about that because Hawaiians deserve more and Hawaiians deserve better.
As we mentioned, we're talking to Dr. Kamana Beamer and Makana Silva. Gentlemen, this has turned out to be exactly what we were hoping for, a very intelligent conversation about a very important issue. Let's do it again in the next hour, shall we? All right, thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that, and thank you for watching. We'll be right back after this.